Hey everybody, Super Squee here of the Emotionally Unstable Gamer channel on YouTube. This is actually take two because my computer decided to have a kerfuffle. Just quick thing. So with anything to do with my big list, which this is just me going over different stuff that I've completed, well, not completed, but finished. I finished watching a movie, I finished listening to an album, or I beat a game. In my sense of beating a game, is just you get done with the story. You do the main components. It doesn't mean you have to complete literally everything in the game. I'm not a completionist. I don't want to be. Some of the shit in some games, like the stuff you have to do to complete a game, is insane. Also, for anything on the list, like if, say, I watched an entire series of a TV show because it's already out, then I'm just going to talk about the whole show. And if I hit something on the list where, say, like season 2 wasn't out yet, but I am only on season 1 on that point on the list when I get to talk about it, I'm just going to talk about the whole entire series as a whole up until that point, because it's much easier to just talk about everything that I remember in general than to try to remember things from like 2 years ago or more, depending on like where I am on the list, and go into detail about specific things in specific seasons. So there will be stuff that's like skipped, and numbers might seem higher or lower depending, but I feel like that stuff you're not really going to notice because the number order really isn't a big deal here, other than just I'm doing it in order because it seems easiest to do it that way. So anyways, now that you've been staring at this Warcraft movie poster for a while, it's Warcraft. Like, it's good to me. Like, I think it's a good movie, and I enjoyed it. It's a very good, like, popcorn flick, you know, the type of movie that you sit on the couch with, like, some friends or something, or that, like, you might come in the living room and see, like, your mom or something watching on DirecTV because it happens to be on or some shit. Like, it's not the greatest thing in the world. I feel like they tried really hard, like, as best they could to make it, like, serious and to be something that people that don't play Warcraft would go and see. And I feel like to that extent, like, it kind of succeeds. Like, my mom enjoyed this film. Like, I know a couple other people that don't really play Warcraft that enjoyed this film. Like, but there's a lot of stuff going on. And even as a person who knows a lot about the Warcraft universe, there's so much shit and so much exposition and so much like stuff they just throw at you that they expect you to catch on to really quickly. And this is a long movie, but it's still, they shoehorn so much shit like so fast into you that it's really easy to lose track and be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, the basic story is really easy to follow, but it gets out of hand with the amount of details it expects you to just know. And then for people that do know the lore, it changes a lot of stuff in really weird ways. But if you like fantasy movies, if you love like visual porn, like just really great CGI, then like definitely watch this movie. Like, you can do a lot worse. And like I said, it's a really great like popcorn film. Like, grab some popcorn, sit on the couch, and like kill 2 hours that you get to look at some really high fidelity like visual just awesomeness. Also, fun fact, so this movie is actually directed by Duncan Jones, who is the late David Bowie's son, and he also directed a movie called Moon that, from my understanding, has has a cult following. Like, I enjoyed it a lot, but it's not like super mainstream. And in that movie's universe, he also made another movie called Mute that is on Netflix. It's one of Netflix's like produced films, which I also find extremely awesome, and you should totally check it out if any of that sounds interesting to you. So moving on to the second thing I finished for the list was Breath of the Wild, which honestly I had no interest in this game whatsoever initially. Just because, like, at that point in time, like, when I first heard about this game, when it was first being announced, I was playing, like, so many things. And I had this bad habit of starting something and then never finishing it, just because, like, I'd be like, oh, well, this seems cool, and then this seems cool, and then this seems cool, and I would just keep jumping from game to game to game. And I would have a bad habit of coming back and then being like, I have no idea what's going on, and then having to reset the game I was playing from the beginning so I would actually understand what the hell was going on or how to play the damn thing. Ooh, excuse me. But Breath of the Wild was a little easier to deal with like that, because I kind of played it and came back, but I didn't give it like a huge amount of space, because I just needed a break, because this game is enormous. There's so much to do. Like, if you're not big on open world games, or like you don't want to explore, then this is not going to be for you. You're going to like go crazy. But it is so beautiful, especially for like being on the Switch and being on the Wii U. And I originally played it on the Wii U. I got it as a gift from a friend, and that's the only reason I ended up playing it at all. And honestly, it's one of my favorite Zeldas out of the entire series now. And I love the exploration. I don't know why I enjoy climbing mountains so much. Like, it's just a lot of fun. Like, I love collecting the different armor, and like you have the ability to dye your armor. So like I loved running around in purple fucking costumes because I love the color purple. And I enjoyed cooking, even though it like got to a point that like when I played it back in the day, like when I went through it, I like had specific recipes that I always remembered, so I just always kept cooking the same shit. So that part got a little old, but like it's still it's a fun game, and I'm kind of off and on replaying it just now for funsies, because now my girlfriend is playing it on the Wii U, and she purchased a Switch, so now I'm playing the Switch version, and it's cool just comparing little things that are different, and just the fact that for the most part the Switch version and the Wii U version look almost identical. Like, the Switch is a little higher fidelity, but like, it is amazing that they got this game to run on the Wii U originally. And I feel like the only reason that it suffers even a little bit on the Switch is because of poor optimization, because they were just trying to port a game that worked on both consoles. But I really loved it. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I don't think it's like the greatest thing of all time or anything, but I am very excited for the sequel. So moving on to number 3, which coincidentally was Diablo 3. And really, I would have saved this one for later, not because I think that Diablo 3 is a bad game by any stretch, but it was very different from 1 and 2, and like I grew up playing a lot of 2 with friends and family. But the only reason that I decided to play 3 is because one of my very close friends was playing it at the time, and he was having a blast with it, and I was like, fuck it, he's here and I want to hang out with him and play games, so I'll play Diablo 3. And we played the PS4 version, and I had an amazing time. It was so much fun, and that obviously has something to do with just playing with good friends and having laughs and like just shredding through shit. But it was so fun. Like, Diablo 3, I still, in my opinion, I believe is a good game, and had a really rocky start with I believe he was the director, Jay Wilson, like being a shithead and like taking personal attacks at the Diablo 1 and 2 team. I don't remember the exact thing from Twitter that got him like let off or fired from Blizzard, but it was something to the effect of like letting a bus roll over the original Diablo team, and that was really fucked up. But since then, like, it's still, like, it's been rocky, and apparently it didn't perform well enough for them to continue making sequels for it, but I really enjoyed not sequels, expansions, and the one expansion it did get, Reaper of Souls, I thought was phenomenal. I really enjoy playing the Necromancer, so I'm glad that even though that it was a $15 pack for a character, it was still very enjoyable. The character is a lot of fun. I love the customization. I love that they brought transmogrification from WoW. Like, it's a lot of fun just making outfits and being able to dye them. And there are just so many quality of life changes that have happened at this point that, like, if you want just like you want to fuck around and like shoot overpowered abilities at creatures and feel powerful for a couple hours, like, grab some friends, grab like a console version of this game, and it's amazing. It's just really great. Like, if I was to give it a number score, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10. Like, you know, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but like it's not worth shitting all over unless you just don't like this genre of game. And then the 4th thing I finished was the first stinker I had, and I know this will probably be like a big thing that people would argue over, because I know there's a lot of people that love these older Final Fantasies, like the first couple of them. But Final Fantasy 1 is just a drag. Like, the story is boring, it's super basic, like D&D style, like you fight the dragons and the goblins and you fucking help the dwarves and the king and the princess got kidnapped and it's like I respect this game for everything it did give us. I love that Final Fantasy exists now and we have that because of this initial game, and like the job system is cool, but like the game is broken. Like, you could just run a team of monks and a white mage if you want. Like, you can literally run anything you want. The game is beatable anyway, but there's so many ways to just face roll this game unintentionally. And I enjoyed part of it, but most of this game was just a drag for me. Like, I personally think the story sucks, the music is great, and I love the redesign and... or I guess not a redesign, because you can tell from the art here that this is the Warrior of Light design that they use, but the updated version that Tetsuya Nomura did for the Dissidia games, I really enjoy, and I love that Garland got some more love and got his like weird giant sword that's super befitting to him. And I feel like, to me, I look at this game and I see potential and see cool shit that could happen, and I would love like them to remake Final Fantasy 1 with like a Breath of the Wild, Dark Souls type of situation where it's not impossible, but you have to have more strategy and make it more of an action-oriented game where, like, you don't have a party. You just pick one character and you are the Warrior of Light, and you can pick from the classes that are there, and you learn different spells, and you explore the whole open world, and you fight creatures out in the wild, and you cook and fucking, like, collect armor and whatever the fuck. But make it like more actiony and make it where it's like an exploration game that has like a challenge. So like my mind goes to like make like Dark Souls style combat, but like have this open world like Breath of the Wild where you can explore and like your spells have effects on the environment and just shit like that. And I know it'll probably never ever happen, but I just think that's a cool concept of what they could do. And regardless, I would love to see like an updated like version of Final Fantasy 1, because I mean, we kind of have one, and it's the first Dissidia game, and that's cool and all, but, like, it'd be cool to see this world, like, upscaled, like, just, I think that'd be cool. I feel like I'm prattling on about this one, but I think that would be cool. So, a long time ago, I had a friend who had an Xbox, or used to have an Xbox, and he had the strategy guide to Halo, and I had never played it. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about the Xbox, and in my brain at that point, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old, and my brain was just like, the Xbox is the big boy system, and like, I don't got that because I'm not a big boy, because I'm a 7 or 8 year old, and for some reason Halo seemed scary to me, and I remember reading the strategy guide, even though I never had the game, and going over all of the maps and seeing where creatures were and reading like about grunts and elites and jackals and like hunters and shit, and just learning about all the shit that had to do with the game before I'd ever played it. And then when I eventually did get to play it, like 3 or 4 years later when I was a teenager, I remember like little pieces from that strategy guide, and it was just super cool. And really the only part of this game that gave me the heebie-jeebies, that still gives me the heebie-jeebies, is the flood, because the library level sucks balls. But I also realized it's not as hard as I remembered it, because more recently when I ran through it, me and a friend just played co-op, ran through the library, had shotguns, and he shot backwards and I shot forwards, and we basically had no opposition, and the level was over super quickly. But fuck Guilty Spark 343 or whatever the fuck his name is. What a horrible little asshole robot, and I think he's dead now. God, I hope, or the grave mind is controlling him somewhere. Either way, he can rot in hell. Really awesome first-person shooter. I believe it revolutionized a lot for like console FPS, especially with control scheme and like giving you 2 sticks. And like I don't necessarily think it was the first. I don't believe it was. It might have been, but I do know that like it did a lot for the FPS genre, especially on consoles. And nowadays, like it's kind of basic for what it is, but it's still a really enjoyable game, and it's got a lot of cool elements. And the ending sequence is still really tense and awesome, and I hate the last level of this game probably more than the rest of any of it. Not because it's hard, but just because I got lost so many times, and I hate shooting those damn rocket launchers into the fucking vents, because sometimes it just doesn't register, and it makes me angry. So, a really long time ago, I watched Black Lagoon. I don't remember how. I might have caught an episode on Adult Swim if it ever ran on, like, Toonami or something. And at the time, I think I might have been, like, 14 or 15, and it was just like, oh, they're saying the F word and dropping S-bombs and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, this is so cool and edgy, and I love it. And it's still edgy, and it's still kind of cool, and, like, it's ridiculous on levels that are just, like, too much at times. But, like, Black Lagoon is a lot of fun, in my opinion, and I really like the characters, even though, like, some of them are, like, some really fucked up caricatures of... I feel like it has really great voice acting, especially for the English dub, which, in my opinion, a lot of English dubs aren't bad, but, like, they get a bad rap in general for the really shitty ones that do exist, and I know that those are all over the place. But I feel like at the same time, you can find a lot of good dubs, so... potato. Like, I do enjoy subs, but I prefer to listen to things in my native language just because it's something that I can put on in the side or in the background and I can hear it and know what's going on. Which, like, you know, if it's in Japanese, I don't speak Japanese. I don't understand Japanese other than, like, 4 or 5 words that I've learned from, like, repetition of watching a couple series. So it's just like, I have no idea what's going on, and sometimes I feel like I like to do multiple things at once, like put a show on and play a game. So, because I'm weird, like, I feel like I need to be doing more at one moment so that I'm not wasting any time. So it's like, I can watch a show and play a game at the same time. But anyways, back to topic of Black Lagoon. Like, it's like a mercenary group, like, collecting jobs, and one of the main characters is, like, a Japanese businessman. I believe he's a Japanese businessman. That he basically gets fucked over by his boss like he never existed in the first place, and when his boss finally shows up because, like, other shit is going on that, like, requires his attention and just so happened to save the employee at the same time, the employee is basically like, you know what, fuck you, my old life sucked, I hated it anyways, like, I'm gonna be a mercenary now, with this ragtag group with Remy, who's, like, the crazy bitch archetype that drinks a lot and has her 2 guns, and, like, she's got some other baggage, and you've got a hacker character, and you've got, like, the big awesome, like big heart, like, team leader type character. Like, it's good shit. It's good shit. And I also didn't realize that, like, there's another season to this that I apparently have not seen yet because I can't find it. So there's that. So this one, I actually remember making a character that I love games that have customization because I like being able to make my own characters. And I like to make either really cool looking female characters, or I usually make characters that are just me, but as a video game character. And I've always loved the Tony Hawk games. I liked Underground and Underground 2 more just because there was, like, a story element, and it wasn't just, like, timed events and doing a bunch of, like, little objectives all over the map. And I liked that even if my character only spoke a little bit, it made me feel more involved because, like, I made the character, I'm the main character, like, I'm doing stuff in this world. And it's just one of those things, I feel like it was the era where it was like, everybody wanted a skateboard, even if you didn't know how. And I feel like I never really had interest in skateboarding, but, like, it was like the skateboarding culture was cool, and I love the music in this game, and I believe this is one of the because it was one of the first things I did for the list. It was like I booted up the game, I realized I had a save file, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll just go from the save file. Like, I remember most of what this game's about and what it's like. That save file was actually at the ass end of the game, where you have to do the fucking Eric Sparrow battle where you have to ride the giant fucking one line. And even though I was at the end of the game, it took me like 3 hours because I kept fucking up minor little stuff. So yeah, fuck Eric Sparrow. And moving on. So I played a little bit of the original Baldur's Gate games that were on PC. I did enjoy them, but I was a little young when I played them for the first time, so it was a lot of information, and the UI just has so much stuff on it, and I had no idea what was going on, and it was like, this seems cool, but I have baby poo brain, so what do? And then I don't remember how I first experienced this game or why I got to play it, but I remember having a friend with me. I remember picking the archer and not realizing he was an archer because I didn't realize that like the people were different classes. So I just picked him because it was like I didn't want to play a dwarf because apparently I was racist towards dwarves at the time, and I didn't want to play a girl because I feel like, I don't know, maybe I felt weird about playing girl characters at the time, which seems so weird to me now. So I picked the like normal like human male character. And then I loaded him up with armor and hit things with a sword and never used any of his abilities because they were all involving like archery and shit. But when I replayed this recently, I played with a good friend of mine, Jason, at least for the initial parts, and we had so much fun. And the thing that I remember the most is there's a part in the Thieves Guild on this game where you're bouncing over platforms, and the platforms have a chance to, or they don't have a chance to, after you jump on them, they fall. So we both kept fucking up, and we would jump and not be in sync. So they would start falling at random intervals, and then we were jumping around out of nowhere, like all around the area, like trying to get to the other side, going two different paths. And there was one point where everything was falling around us, and we jumped at the same time to go to the exit, and instead our characters smacked into each other, full collision, because like the characters actually, what is the word? You can't go through each other on this game, so it's like we touched each other, got stuck, twirled in circles for like half a second, and then fell to our deaths. And we were just laughing our asses off the entire time. The ass end of this game, I feel like, is a drag. I feel like it's just like a grind fest, and it's boring, and like the interesting shit stops coming. But like as a whole, it's a pretty good game, and it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely one of those things that you need a friend to play it, because it's just not as fun playing this by yourself. And it's also just more fun to like steal armor and money from your friend and piss them off, and then you hoard all the gold, and then you can act like a sugar daddy and buy all their shit for them. This bad game, this real bad game, it froze my Xbox like 3 times. Actually, not my Xbox. It's my ex's Xbox, which I had for a while because we weren't talking at that point, and I gave back. But I wanted to segue that it was my ex's Xbox, even though that's a dumb joke. But this game is terrible, and I think it's hilarious that like it was $20 at one point at all. I picked it up from a used game shop because I remember playing it like when I was much younger. I'm trying to think. I think I was like 11 years old at the time, maybe 11 or 12, something like that. And it was a game that we rented, and we were living with some friends of my dad's at the time. And I remember the day that I was playing it, like the second day after we rented it, that I was just like balls deep in this game. Like I found out because the daughter of the person we were staying with comes in the room and was like, "Oh, you guys are still here? I thought my mom kicked you out." And I went and woke up my mother and my sister and was like, "What the hell is going on?" And they were like, "I don't know." And they talked to her, and that woman was a cunt, and she didn't even have like the balls to tell us that we were kicked out. But my dad was allowed to stay. So I had this like traumatic memory. But I remembered at the time that I was enjoying it because it was like you take drugs and you're a corrupt police officer and you do all kinds of cool shit, and like there's fucking smiley face heads and shit. And so I saw it for like 50 cents at a used game store and was like, hell yeah, like let's play that again. That was some goofy dumb shit. Let's do it. God, it was terrible. It froze so many times. And it's like the game kind of makes sense for a while. Like, it's not a great game, but it's like in the context of its own world, it makes sense. And then you get to the ass end of the game, and there's like a giant spider robot thing with like a fucking dead guy inside of it that I believe was voiced by Ron Perlman. And you're fighting like this BDSM like latex woman that I think had swords and a cowboy hat. I can't remember. It was so ridiculous. And before that, you're like at like a dojo style area in China, because like the second part of the game is like you're in China and you're like fighting a bunch of monks like with guns. And it's like, it's not even good ridiculousness, because like the plot doesn't need it. It's just all the fuck over the place, and it's like, what the hell? What even? And just mechanics are bad, like hitboxes are bad, like when you jump for the small amount of platforming that's in the game, it's terrible. Like gunplay is horrible. Just everything about this game is garbage. But if you find all of the secret drug stashes in the first main hub area, which is like the normal city area before you go to the China area, it does unlock the one and only redeeming quality of this game. Which apparently isn't the next thing, because I was going to segue into it. So my bad, but we'll get there soon. I'll let you know. So Fable Lost Chapters, specifically on Xbox, the original Xbox, an absolute horrible time. It starts out great, and you're like, yeah, this is a great RPG, and I'm doing cool stuff, and I wanted to be a mage, because I always pick the archer archetype, and the mage, like, the spells just, they take too long to cast. There's no, like, alternatives that feel fun without you getting your ass beat every 5 seconds. If you don't pick the, like, mage armor spell that, like, drains your mana when you're hit instead, and it makes you invulnerable, and, like, the really good spells are like really expensive, like both mana and experience point wise, and they take forever to charge up if they even kill anything in the first place. And most of the spells like don't even work on bosses like at all, because a bunch of the bosses require you to use specific mechanics. So it's like by the end of the game you always have this problem of you're kind of going to be a jack of all trades because you have to be, or you're going to have a terrible fucking time. And on the Xbox specifically, like its frame rate tanks really hard, like in the later areas. Like I was just trying to get through the game, and like I swear to you, it was running at like 3 frames per second. Half the time I thought the game was going to freeze or just like explode. And I own this on PC, but at the time I didn't really have a computer or anything that would run it well, so I was like, fuck it, I'll play the Xbox version, because I'd like to hold a controller in my hand. Terrible decision. It's still a fun game. There's cool shit going on, but like, this game is super overrated to me, honestly. Like, if you've never played it, like, I feel like if you like RPGs and you've never played it, you should give it a try, because there's some enjoyable shit, and like there's fun to be had, and I don't think it's like a bad game necessarily, but I do think that the people that play it and they're like, this is so awesome, like it's an underrated gem. It's not underrated. If anything, it's overrated at this point, or it's rated exactly where it should be. Like, it's not super great, but it's also not garbage, and we shouldn't say any more on it other than that. And at this point, I feel like there's a lot of games that have done similar things that, like, have done it better. Even the sequels to this game. So the NARC 1988 arcade game is the only good part of the NARC 2005 game. If you collect all of those secret drug stashes, then you unlock NARC, the arcade game. And it is ridiculous. You shoot hobos and they explode into drugs and like pieces of meat, I believe, or this might have been the edited version, so I think it was just drugs. And you're just dual wielding fucking giant ass machine guns, and it is ridiculous. And then you like, there's a point where you're in a fucking like car racing down the road, blowing people up, and like you crash into shit and your characters fly out of the car, and they're like evil clown drug dealers and shit, and like super mutant dogs, and at one point like all the dogs get shrunk into tiny little baby dogs and they whimper, and I don't remember why that happens, but it's fucking hilarious. Like, this game is just batshit like crazy, like ridiculous levels of nonsense, but like it all fits in its stupid little video game world, and it's a lot of fun. And it's definitely, it was a quarter muncher, so it's nice that that you have cheat codes for the game, so you can cheat to win, so you can just enjoy like being ridiculous. But it's a good time. And it's the best part of this fucking like tragedy that is NARC 2005 that wasn't even worth the 50 cents I paid. Or was worth the 50 cents I paid solely for this masterpiece, which is not actually a masterpiece, but in comparison. But anyway, guys, I think I've prattled on quite enough. I think that was about 10 entries. We have only, Jesus, like 490 of them to go. Probably more by the time I keep putting out these videos. But if you listened this far, me rambling, figuring out what the fuck I'm doing, trying to get my sense of whatever with this channel and what I want to do, then thank you very much. And bye.